Hi, my name is Hannah Smolich, and this is the Started in Stanford podcast. I interview entrepreneurs of Stamford, Connecticut to learn about what they do and why. Today we have Ahmed with us. Hi, Ahmed, how are you?
I'm good, and you?
Good. So first, can you explain a little bit about what you do?
Hi, my name is Ahmed Diakhate. I am an entrepreneur and I own my own clothing brand out of Hamden, Connecticut. But recently, I've been living in Stanford for school and whatnot. So that's sort of like what I do.
Great. So why did you choose to start your business initially?
So I started my business around like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, in high school. It was at first it was me and a group of friends, two friends. Their names were Dwayne and Jordan, and we were just like in my house and like ever since middle school, I always had a passion to go and make clothes. Like my favorite rappers, ASAP Rocky and whatnot. So like a lot of like growing up, like I've like had a lot of fashion around me and whatnot. So I really wanted to go and get into making clothes, but I just didn't know how. So then when junior year came around with my friend, I was just like, okay, like let's do it. Prior to that, we like made like mock-ups in Photoshop and whatnot. I used to like crack Photoshop and get like free Photoshop. And like we would just like mess around in there. And then so like junior year came around and then we like came up with the name. We were just sitting in my house and we came up with the name Lost or whatnot. And we wanted to make it conceptual. So more of like what you make of it and not really give like a set definition to the brand. So from that, it was us three at first, and then basically what happened was they weren't like really proactive with it. So I ended up taking
Mhm.
the name and running. I asked them for it, and they ended up making their own brand separate from this. It's called 200 Degrees. I'm not sure if they're still making clothes or whatnot, but then I ended up going off by myself and doing the clothes by myself. And the first couple drops didn't do too well, but it was around this time last year when I started gaining traction. I released my collaboration with a local New Haven illustrator. Her name is Urim, and she draws. She's like a Korean artist, so she has like a very definitive style, and I really enjoyed her
Mhm.
style. And at the time, I was going to art school, and that's when I met her, and her style was just like very like intuitive and whatnot, and it was different from the rest, and I saw that. So um, we ended up collaborating. We ended up dropping around 6 T-shirts. One of the T-shirts I ended up selling around like the most I ever sold, like T-shirts wise in general, like more than anything else combined.
Wow.
So that like really gave me like a jolt to keep on going. And then throughout like the past like year past that, a lot of it has been like the developmental. Like I only released one time, which was in January. So over the past year, I've just been upgrading my equipment. I could screen print now. I could do embroidery. I could do heat press. So now I'm moving towards like making the clothes myself. And yeah, so just this year, I've been working on like a lot of development. So I do like sublimation now. I could do like denim more than just t-shirts. I could do like denim,
Mhm.
jackets, and whatnot. Just basically, I have free range to do whatever I want now. So I think that like with this year being like more of a developmental year going on out, like now I can really start pumping out designs and really, creating something
Yeah.
different.
Going to school in Stanford, have you found that there's a lot of fashion connections here or not so much?
Not so much, but there is a close proximity to New York, and
Yeah.
that's sort of like where the epicenter of all of it is, alongside like like England fashion and California fashion. But like New York is like really the epicenter with a lot of good like fashion being based out there. Like a lot of like good fashion designers came out there, like Dapper Dan and whatnot for Gucci and
Hmm.
people like that. So I mean, Stanford is a great location with like just like the proximity in New York. But me personally, I haven't like met too many people in the fashion industry in Stanford. I,
Okay.
I would like to meet some though.
Yeah. Have you found that the students, buy your clothing and because your clothing is pretty, I would think, younger demographic based. Do you have
Mhm.
pretty good luck with students?
Yeah, a lot of my buyers are students, but I want to eventually like make my clothes being more suitable for like all ages. So I want to make like more like higher end clothes when needed, and then also like keep the streetwear as well, but like more like higher end clothing. So yeah, a lot of my demographic right now is students. Um,
Hmm.
and like a lot of kids that go to my to go to that go to UConn, they ended up purchasing some clothes. So that was cool as well.
Do you think there's any benefits of being in the fashion industry in Stanford and not New York? I know it's a little bit cheaper, but is there anything other than that?
Um, I guess like maybe like being away from just a clustered area all the time, you know?
Okay.
Because like living in New York, like you're always like in a big cluster, and sometimes people want to break from that. They want to go adventure and explore. So I feel like that like a lot of big people, like big artists and like big fashion people, they ended up like leaving New York for periods of time, like when Kanye West went to Wyoming to go and do his album and whatnot. Like a lot of people, they end up like escaping that area for a little while, like that little bubble of just like being in constant movement and whatnot. So I feel like that Stanford is a good location for that, because at the end of the day, when you're done doing your work in New York, like I had a studio in New York actually, and that's where I started like creating like my sublimation pieces and whatnot. And then after I would be done, I was able to go and take the train back to Stanford to my dormitory, my apartment.
Hmm.
And it was good, like because like I could transition easily between the two because they were so close. And yeah, just to go and take that break and to go and get back and like experience a different area to go and create. It's good to like have like different areas where you could.
Yeah, that's great because I know everyone kind of wants to always end up in New York, but being in a quieter area, a little less busy, definitely has its
Yeah,
benefits for
I,
sure.
I feel like once you live there for like a few years, that like you're gonna like really like feel like feel the like sort of like what I'm talking about. Is like when you're there, you want to like have like an outlet to go and leave sometimes.
Of course, yeah. So what about these times that we're going through now of COVID-19? Have you changed the way you do business or introduced anything new?
I haven't released in like almost 4 months, but I've just been like creating and like rebranding and whatnot. So yeah, all the clothes are still up from my January release. I left those up for people to go and purchase, and people have been buying, although it's been slowing down due to the epidemic, which I totally understand. And but yeah, so I've just been like creating and whatnot. I've been working on a lot of embroidery with the machine that I got, and just like rebranding, just like retooling and taking the time to go and take a step back and really think how can I improve my brand.
Yeah,
So I've
this
been
definitely gives us some time to
yeah.
work on whatever we have to work on.
Been working on like logos, sort of like a more essential collection for people who want like not like too out there brand pieces, and more like subtle pieces that you could layer with jackets and whatnot. So yeah, I just been working on rebranding.
That's great. And I've also heard a lot that you've been making masks for people in need. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So recently I started to go and make masks. It was actually an idea passed on me from my mom and my friend who actually works for Masonic here in Wallingford. He told me that a lot of people at his place need masks. So I was like, okay, I could step in because I know how to sew now and I know how to embroider. So I was like, okay. So I ended up making these like antibacterial masks at first. It was like a small run of about like 30, and those went out to a lot of the patients really in need. So basically, how it work is, I'll get the antibacterial cloth from my aunt, and she lives in St. Croix, so she had access to these things, and she mailed them over to me, and then I would stitch it together. I actually have a mask with me, so this is
Oh,
like
great.
the first mask. So I would stitch it together and then embroider like a little logo in the front, and then in the logo is a filter. So yeah,
How
this
long
is
does it take you to make each of those?
to go stitch the mask, I believe like around 10 minutes, and then to embroider on it, it's a 5 minute stitch out. So not too long, 15 minutes a mask. And yeah, I ended up making around 250 for Masonic Care and Yale New Haven Health. So yeah.
Well, that's great. Good luck. I mean, that's amazing. I'm really glad to see that there's people out there trying to help out the best they can. And um, they look cool too. The logo on front looks great. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining this podcast today. Can you tell our viewers just a little bit about where they could find you? An Instagram, website?
So my Instagram is Lost Global. You can find me there, and the website also to go and shop is www.shoplost.com. So yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much.
thank you for having me.
Of course.